Hello, everyone. My name is Anna, and I'm incredibly happy that you're here with me today. If you're watching this video, chances are you've reached a solid B2 level. In English, you understand most conversations. You can express yourself in daily situations, and you feel comfortable communicating in many contexts. But now, you're aiming higher. You want to move towards C1 fluency, where your English becomes more flexible, more natural, and more confident in real-life interactions. And that's exactly what we're going to focus on today. In this lesson, you won't just listen passively, you'll speak, repeat, upgrade your vocabulary, and train your brain to think in English. Every section of this lesson is designed to push you from upper intermediate toward advanced expression, step by step. So stay with me all the way to the end, because the final part brings everything together, helping you apply what you've learned in a powerful, practical way. Take a deep breath, relax your shoulders. And let's begin this journey to C1 fluency together. Before we start, grab a pen and paper or simply stay focused and engaged. The more active you are, the more you'll gain from this practice. Let's begin with something essential: upgrading everyday sentences. At the B2 level, your sentences are usually clear and grammatically correct, but they're still often simple. At C1, you need to add precision, depth, and nuance. So I'll give you a standard B2 sentence, and you'll transform it into a more advanced, expressive version. Here's the first one. B2 sentence: I had a busy day. Now let's upgrade it. C1 versions could be: I had an incredibly demanding day with barely a moment to catch my breath. Or, my day was packed with responsibilities and constant activity. Or, it turned out to be a challenging day filled with back-to-back tasks. Notice how each upgraded version adds detail and emotional clarity. This is what makes your English sound more advanced and more engaging. Now, pause here for a moment and repeat the upgraded versions out loud. Then create your own C1 version of I had a busy day. Saying the sentence aloud helps your brain memorize structure and rhythm. Let's try another upgrade. Basic B2 sentence: I'm a bit tired. C1 upgrades: I'm feeling rather drained after everything I had to handle today. Or I'm slightly worn out. But I'm managing. Or I'm pretty exhausted after such a long and intense day. Again, you can hear the nuance, the subtlety, the natural flow. These small adjustments are what push you from B2 to C1. Now, repeat after me: I'm feeling rather drained today. Good. I'm slightly worn out. Nice. I'm pretty exhausted after such a long day. Excellent. Let's do one more. Basic B2 sentence: The movie was good. C1 upgrades: The movie was genuinely captivating and far better than I expected. Or it was a beautifully crafted film with a surprisingly deep storyline. Or I found the movie engaging, especially the way the characters were developed. At the C1 level, you describe experiences with richness and clarity, not just with one vague word like good. Repeat after me. The movie was genuinely captivating. Again, it was a beautifully crafted film. One more: I found the movie engaging, especially the character development. Great work! Now, let's explore connectors, an area that clearly separates B2 speakers from C1 speakers. At B2, most learners use connectors like so, because, but, however, and also. These are useful, but C1 fluency requires a wider range. Here are some advanced connectors we'll practice today. Nevertheless, on the other hand, in contrast, as a result, consequently, even though in addition to that, let's apply them. B2 version, I wanted to go for a walk, but it started raining. C1 versions, I wanted to go for a walk. Nevertheless, the sudden rain forced me to stay indoors, or I had planned to go for a walk. However, the rain made it impossible, or I felt like going for a walk. Yet the unexpected rain changed my plans. Each of these sounds more polished, more natural, more advanced. Repeat after me, nevertheless. The sudden rain forced me to stay indoors. Good. However, the rain made it impossible. One more. Yet the unexpected rain changed my plans. Let's try another example. B2, I stayed home because I was tired. C1 upgrades. I decided to stay home since I was feeling completely worn out, or I chose to stay in, as I didn't have the energy to go out, or I remained at home, given how exhausted I felt. Repeat after me, I decided to stay home since I was feeling worn out. Great! I chose to stay in, as I didn't have the energy. Nice! I remained at home. Given how exhausted I felt. Excellent. Now, let's shift to something else you must master to move from B2 to C1, describing things with more precision. B2 speakers often describe things in simple terms: nice, bad, interesting, big, small, important. But C1 speakers use words that paint a picture. Let's practice with the sentence, my room is small. C1 upgrades. My room is compact but comfortable, with just enough space for everything I need. Or, though my room is modest in size, it feels warm and inviting. Or, it may be a small room, but it has a cozy atmosphere that makes it feel like home. Repeat after me. My room is compact but comfortable. Again, it feels warm and inviting. Nice. Now, think of your own space, your bedroom, your study area, and create one C1 description of it. Let's move on to idiomatic expressions, an essential part of C1 fluency. At B2, learners often rely on literal language. But at C1, idioms and natural expressions make your English sound authentic. Let's practice a few commonly used and reliable idioms. I'm worn out, very tired. That was a piece of cake. Very easy. I can't make sense of it. I don't understand it. I'm over the moon, very happy. Repeat after me, I'm worn out. That was a piece of cake. I can't make sense of it. I'm over the moon. These expressions appear daily in real conversations, movies, series, and interviews. They're part of natural English. Great job sticking with me. Let's continue building your C1 fluency step by step. In this next section, we're going to work on nuance, synonyms, emotional expression, and paraphrasing 4 essential skills that separate B2 speakers from C1 speakers. At the B2 level, you already communicate clearly, but at C1 you need to communicate precisely, choosing the right word to match the exact meaning you want. So let's begin with nuance. At B2 you might use one common word repeatedly. For example, the word happy. But C1 speakers choose from a range of synonyms depending on the emotion. Let's upgrade I'm happy. C1 versions, I'm delighted with the results. I'm genuinely pleased with how everything turned out. I'm absolutely thrilled about the news. I feel deeply content at the moment. Each of these expresses a slightly different emotion. Repeat after me, I'm delighted with the results. I'm genuinely pleased. I'm absolutely thrilled. I feel deeply content. Great. Now let's look at another example, I'm sad. B2 version is simple, but C1 uses nuance. I'm a bit upset about what happened. I felt disheartened after hearing the news. I was deeply disappointed with the outcome. I felt heartbroken when I realized what it meant. Repeat after me, I'm a bit upset about what happened. I felt disheartened. I was deeply disappointed. I felt heartbroken. As you upgrade your emotional vocabulary, you become more expressive, more natural, and more capable of describing real-life feelings in English. Now, let's move to paraphrasing. Paraphrasing is a key element of C1 fluency because even when you forget a word, you can keep speaking smoothly without interrupting your flow. Here's a simple exercise. I'll give you a basic sentence, and we'll create multiple advanced versions. Basic sentence. I don't understand this. C1 paraphrases. I can't make sense of this. This doesn't quite add up for me. I'm having trouble figuring this out. I'm struggling to understand what this means. Repeat after me, I can't make sense of this. This doesn't quite add up for me. I'm having trouble figuring this out. I'm struggling to understand this. Now imagine you forget the word solution. At B2 you might freeze. At C1 you can say, a way to fix the problem, an answer to the issue, a method that works. This ability keeps your speech natural and fluent. Let's practice with another example. Basic sentence, it's expensive. C1 versions. It costs quite a lot. It's fairly pricey. It's on the expensive side. It's not exactly cheap. Repeat after me. It costs quite a lot. It's fairly pricey. It's on the expensive side. It's not exactly cheap. Great work. Now let's move into a crucial skill for C1 fluency, using connectors to sound more logical and structured. At B2 you might say, I like my job. It has flexible hours. At C1 you upgrade it, I enjoy my job, particularly because the hours are flexible. Or, one of the main reasons I appreciate my job is the flexibility it offers. Or, I genuinely like my job, mainly due to the flexible schedule. Repeat after me, particularly because the hours are flexible. One of the main reasons I appreciate my job, mainly due to the flexible schedule. These structures help your speech sound organized and thoughtful. Let's try one more. B2, I don't agree with him. C1 versions. I'm not entirely convinced by his argument. I see his point. But I don't fully share the same opinion. I understand where he's coming from, though I view it differently. I have some doubts about his perspective. Repeat, I'm not entirely convinced. I see his point. But I understand where he's coming from. I have some doubts about his perspective. Perfect. Now let's practice advanced connectors for contrast, reasoning, and adding information. Here are some you'll use a lot at C1. Although despite that in contrast, on the other hand, in addition to that, as a result, consequently. Let's use them in context. B2, I was tired. I kept working. C1, although I was tired, I continued working, or I was exhausted. Nevertheless, I pushed through, or, despite feeling tired, I managed to finish everything. Repeat after me, although I was tired, I continued working. Nevertheless, I pushed through, despite feeling tired. I managed to finish everything. Nice. Now let's practice real-life sentences to strengthen your fluency. Basic, I finished the project. C1 upgrades. I managed to complete the project on time. I wrapped up the project earlier than expected. I brought the project to completion after several hours of work. Repeat, I managed to complete the project. I wrapped up the project. I brought the project to completion. These are extremely common expressions native speakers use daily. Now let's shift into descriptive fluency, an essential part of C1 speaking. At B2, your descriptions may be short. The weather is nice today. At C1, you add detail. The weather today is pleasantly warm with a light breeze. Or it's a beautiful day, bright, calm, and perfect for being outside. Or the air feels fresh, and the sunlight is gentle, making it a lovely morning. Repeat. Pleasantly warm with a light breeze, bright, calm, and perfect for being outside. The air feels fresh, and the sunlight is gentle. This is how you build longer, richer sentences naturally. Now, let's do a real-life practice exercise. Imagine someone asks, "How was your weekend?" B2 answer, "It was good." C1 answers, "My weekend was really enjoyable. I spent time with people I care about, and it felt refreshing." Or, "It was a relaxing weekend. I finally had time to unwind and do the things I've been putting off." Or, "My weekend was productive and surprisingly peaceful. I feel recharged for the week ahead." Repeat after me, "It was really enjoyable." "It was a relaxing weekend. I feel recharged for the week ahead." Welcome back. You're doing an amazing job staying focused and practicing actively. In this section, we're going to work on storytelling, natural rhythm, advanced grammar choices, and daily life expressions that native speakers use constantly. These elements will help you make the shift from B2 communication clear but sometimes simple to C1 communication rich, fluid, and natural. Let's begin with storytelling, one of the strongest indicators of advanced fluency. At B2, when you tell a story, you might use short, simple sentences like, "Yesterday I went to the supermarket. I bought some food. I met my friend. Then I went home. Clear but not engaging. At C1, you need to create flow, connect ideas naturally, and add detail. Here's how you can upgrade the same story. Yesterday afternoon, I went to the supermarket to pick up a few things I needed for the week. While I was there, I unexpectedly ran into a friend I hadn't seen in a while. We ended up chatting for a bit before I finished my shopping and headed home. Do you see the difference? It's smoother, more descriptive, and far more natural. Repeat after me. Yesterday afternoon, I went to the supermarket to pick up a few things. I unexpectedly ran into a friend I hadn't seen in a while. We ended up chatting for a bit before I finished my shopping. Great! Now let's practice a new example. Basic B2 story. I cooked dinner last night. It was good. C1 upgrade. Last night, I cooked a simple dinner at home, and to my surprise, it turned out really well. The flavors blended nicely, and the whole meal felt comforting after a long day. Repeat. Last night, I cooked a simple dinner at home. It turned out really well. The whole meal felt comforting after a long day. Good. Now let's move to advanced rhythm and tone, which is essential for sounding natural and confident. At B2, learners often speak word by word. I went to the store to buy food. At C1, you group words into chunks or units, making your speech flow more naturally. I went to the store to buy some food. I wasn't expecting it, but the day turned out great. I've been trying to finish this project all week. Repeat after me. I went to the store to buy some food. The day turned out great. I've been trying to finish this project all week. This rhythm is exactly how native speakers talk. Now let's practice expanding your grammar range. At the B2 level, you use basic tenses efficiently, but at C1, you must show flexibility. Let's start with a simple sentence. I studied English last year. At C1, you might say, I spent most of last year focusing on improving my English skills. I had been studying English for several months before I joined the course. I was studying English regularly throughout last year to build consistency. Each version emphasizes different aspects: duration, sequence, habit. Repeat after me. I spent most of last year focusing on improving my English skills. I had been studying English for several months before I joined the course. I was studying English regularly throughout last year. Nice! Now, let's practice conditionals, which are powerful tools for advanced fluency. B2 often uses first and second conditionals. If it rains, I'll stay home. If I had time, I would travel. At C1, you need more complex forms. Let's practice third and mixed conditionals. Third conditional: if I had woken up earlier, I wouldn't have missed the bus. Mixed conditional: if I had studied harder in the past, I would be more confident now. Repeat after me. If I had woken up earlier, I wouldn't have missed the bus. If I had studied harder in the past, I would be more confident now. These structures show real mastery, and they appear frequently in natural English. Now, let's work with collocations, words that naturally go together. B2 speakers may invent combinations like strong rain or do a decision. But native speakers say, heavy rain make a decision. Collocations are essential for sounding natural at C1. Here are some common. Reliable collocations take responsibility. Deeply concerned, fast learner. Make progress highly effective, strong possibility. Let's use them in sentences. I need to take responsibility for my actions. I'm deeply concerned about the situation. She's a fast learner and adapts quickly. This method has proven to be highly effective. Repeat after me. Take responsibility. Deeply concerned. A fast learner. Highly effective. Now let's practice using these in real-life responses. Imagine someone asks, "How's your new job?" A B2 answer might be, "It's good." A C1 answer, "It's going really well. I've been making steady progress. And I'm learning new skills every day. The team is supportive. And I feel like I'm adapting quickly." Repeat, "It's going really well. I've been making steady progress. I feel like I'm adapting quickly." Perfect. Now let's strengthen your description skills. Another key to C1 fluency. B2. The city is beautiful. C1. The city is incredibly vibrant, with lively streets and a great atmosphere. Or, it's a beautiful city filled with unique architecture and friendly people. Or, the city feels full of energy, especially in the evening when everything comes to life. Repeat, incredibly vibrant, unique architecture, full of energy. These descriptions sound authentic and natural in advanced English. Now, let's practice describing experiences, an area where B2 learners often sound too simple. Basic, I enjoyed the event. C1 upgrades. I genuinely enjoyed the event. It was both inspiring and well organized. I found the event surprisingly engaging, especially the discussions. I appreciated the event because it gave me new perspectives. Repeat after me, I genuinely enjoyed the event. It was inspiring and well organized. I gained new perspectives. Nicely done. Finally, let's build your ability to talk about daily life in a natural, advanced way. B2 example, I had a long day. C1, I had a long and demanding day, but I managed to get everything done. Or, it turned out to be a really intense day with plenty of challenges. Or, it was a full day, and by the end of it, I felt completely drained. Repeat, a long and demanding day. An intense day with plenty of challenges. I felt completely drained. Excellent job. Welcome back. You're making fantastic progress. In this part, we're going to move deeper into the areas that truly define C1 speakers expressing opinions clearly, adding sophistication to your ideas, using natural idioms, and learning how native speakers structure thoughts in real conversations. These skills help you not only sound advanced, but also think in English more flexibly. Let's begin with expressing opinions, a major difference between B2 and C1 speakers. At the B2 level, learners usually rely on simple structures like I think, I believe, in my opinion. These are correct, but C1 learners diversify their expression. Here are some C1 level opinion starters. As far as I'm concerned, from my perspective, I'm convinced that it seems to me that I would argue that, to the best of my understanding. Let's practice these in context. Basic B2, I think learning English is important. C1 upgrades. As far as I'm concerned, learning English is essential for personal and professional growth, or from my perspective, English is a gateway to global communication. Or I would argue that learning English opens opportunities that wouldn't exist otherwise. Repeat after me. As far as I'm concerned, from my perspective, I would argue that. Excellent. Now, let's explore adding depth to your opinions, something native speakers do naturally. B2 often expresses an opinion with one sentence, I don't like this idea. C1 speakers expand their thoughts. I'm not entirely convinced by this idea, mainly because it lacks clear direction, or I see the intention behind this idea. But I believe it needs more structure, or I understand the reasoning, though I'm not sure it would be effective in practice. Repeat after me, I'm not entirely convinced by this idea. It needs more structure. I understand the reasoning, though I'm not sure it would be effective. Good. Now let's practice soft disagreement, which is essential for polite and professional communication. At B2, disagreement can sound too direct, I don't agree. At C1, you soften it. I see your point, but I have a different perspective. I understand what you mean, although I'm not completely on board. That's an interesting idea. Though I would look at it another way, I agree to an extent, but I think there's more to consider. Repeat after me, I see your point. But I have a different perspective. I'm not completely on board. That's an interesting idea. Though, now let's move on to idioms and natural expressions that native speakers use daily and that fit perfectly at the C1 level. These idioms are practical and commonly used, not rare or old-fashioned. Practice these to be on the same page, to understand each other, to take something into account, to consider, to keep someone posted, to update someone, to fall behind, to make slower progress, to catch up with something, to return to something unfinished, to make up your mind, to decide. Let's use them in sentences. Repeat after me. Before we start the project, let's make sure we're on the same page. We need to take several factors into account. I'll keep you posted on any updates. I'm falling behind on my work. I need to catch up with my assignments. I haven't made up my mind yet. Great. Now we'll practice expanding simple statements into C1 level explanations. B2, I'm stressed. C1, I'm feeling quite stressed at the moment because I have a lot on my plate. Or, I'm a bit overwhelmed right now, there's so much I need to take care of. Or, I've been under a lot of pressure lately, and it's starting to affect my focus. Repeat, I have a lot on my plate. I'm a bit overwhelmed. I've been under a lot of pressure. Good. Now let's work on natural transitions that help your ideas flow smoothly. Transitions for adding ideas. Furthermore, in addition to that, on top of that, transitions for contrast. However, nevertheless, even so, transitions for explanation. In other words, to put it differently, what I mean is, let's place them in context. B2, I like the idea, it's simple. C1, I like the idea, in other words, its simplicity is what makes it appealing. Or, I like the idea. Furthermore, it's practical and easy to apply. Repeat after me. In other words, furthermore. To put it differently. Now let's practice daily life examples. Basic, I didn't finish the report. C1, I didn't manage to finish the report. However, I'm almost done and can complete it tomorrow. Or, I wasn't able to finish the report today, but I made significant progress. Repeat, I didn't manage to finish the report. I made significant progress. Nicely done. Now, let's move into natural spoken English phrases. Native speakers use constantly, but learners often miss. Practice these. Actually, I've been meaning to do that. To be honest, I didn't expect that to happen. Now that you mention it, that makes sense. If you think about it, it's pretty logical. You know what I mean? That sounds fair enough. Let's use them in conversation-style lines. Repeat after me, actually. I've been meaning to do that. To be honest, I didn't expect that. Now that you mention it, that makes sense. If you think about it, it's pretty logical. That sounds fair enough. Good. Now let's practice expressing uncertainty in natural, real-life English. B2 typically says, maybe he's late. C1 says he might have been delayed by traffic. It's possible he lost track of time. He could be running behind schedule. Repeat after me. He might have been delayed. It's possible he lost track of time. He could be running behind schedule. Now let's build real-life dialogue fluency. Imagine you're talking with a coworker. B2 version, I didn't understand the instructions. C1 version, I'm not entirely sure. I understood the instructions correctly. Could we go over them again, just to make sure we're aligned? Repeat. I'm not entirely sure I understood the instructions. Could we go over them again? Excellent. Welcome back. You're doing incredibly well. In this part, we're going to step deeper into advanced description, professional communication, subtle emotions, and natural, everyday phrasing that native speakers use without thinking. These are the details that take your English from good to truly fluent. Let's get started with advanced description, a powerful skill that helps you express ideas clearly and vividly. At the B2 level, your descriptions may sound like this. The place is nice. The food was good. My friend is funny. Clear but too simple for C1. At the C1 level, you need to add specific details, tone, and context. Let's upgrade those descriptions. B2. The place is nice. C1. The place has a warm, welcoming atmosphere that makes you feel comfortable as soon as you walk in. Or it's a lovely place, quiet, clean, and surprisingly charming. Repeat after me. A warm, welcoming atmosphere, quiet, clean, and surprisingly charming. Good. Let's try the next one. B2. The food was good. C1. The food was beautifully prepared and full of flavor. Or, the meal was delicious, with a balance of rich and fresh ingredients. Or, the dishes were thoughtfully presented and genuinely enjoyable. Repeat, beautifully prepared and full of flavor. A balance of rich and fresh ingredients. Excellent. One more. B2. My friend is funny. C1. My friend has a great sense of humor. He always knows how to lighten the mood. Or she's effortlessly funny. Her jokes are natural and never forced. Repeat, a great sense of humor. Effortlessly funny. Perfect. Now let's move to professional communication, an essential skill for C1 English. This is especially important if you work in international environments, attend meetings, or collaborate with global teams. Here are some C1 phrases commonly used at work. Could we clarify this point to make sure we're aligned? I'd appreciate it if you could follow up on that. Would you mind giving me a quick update? Let's circle back to this topic later. I'll look into it and get back to you. This approach seems effective, provided we manage the risks. These are realistic, natural expressions used every day by native speakers. Repeat after me. Could we clarify this point to make sure we're aligned? I'd appreciate it if you could follow up. Let's circle back to this topic later. I'll look into it and get back to you. Now let's take a simple B2 workplace sentence and upgrade it. B2, I need help. C1, I was wondering if you could give me a hand with this task. Or could you assist me with this? I'd really appreciate your input. Repeat, I was wondering if you could give me a hand. I'd really appreciate your input. Very good. Here's another one. B2, I don't understand this. C1, I'm having trouble fully understanding this part. Could you explain it a bit more? Or, this section isn't entirely clear to me. Would you mind walking me through it? Repeat, I'm having trouble fully understanding this part. This section isn't entirely clear to me. Excellent. Now let's move on to subtle emotions, an area where B2 speakers often sound too direct or simple. At B2 emotions look like this. I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm happy, I'm nervous. At C1 emotions become more nuanced. Let's upgrade them. B2, I'm angry. C1, I'm really frustrated with how things turned out. Or, I'm upset about the situation and trying to process it. Repeat, I'm really frustrated. I'm upset about the situation. Now B2, I'm sad. C1, I've been feeling a bit down lately. Or I felt disheartened after hearing the news. Repeat, I've been feeling a bit down. I felt disheartened. Next, B2, I'm nervous. C1, I'm feeling a bit anxious about this, or I'm slightly on edge because I'm not sure what to expect. Repeat, a bit anxious, slightly on edge. Finally, B2, I'm happy. C1, I'm genuinely pleased with how things are going, or I'm really glad everything worked out so well. Repeat, I'm genuinely pleased. I'm really glad. Great work. Now, let's work with natural C1 everyday phrasing expressions that appear constantly in real conversations. Practice these. To be honest, as far as I can tell, if I'm being completely honest, to tell you the truth, as it turns out, believe it or not, for what it's worth. These expressions make your speech sound effortless and authentic. Let's use them in short sentences. Repeat after me. To be honest, I wasn't expecting that. As far as I can tell, everything looks fine, as it turns out. The solution was much simpler, believe it or not. I finished the project early. Excellent. Now let's practice expressing partial agreement, a skill native speakers use constantly in daily conversation. Instead of saying, I agree, or I don't agree, try these C1 expressions. I agree to some extent, but you make a valid point. Although, that's true, but there's another side to consider. I see where you're coming from, though. Repeat, I agree to some extent. You make a valid point. I see where you're coming from. Good. Next, let's strengthen your ability to explain reasons clearly, something C1 speakers excel at. B2 explanation, I didn't go because I was tired. C1 upgrades. I didn't go because I was absolutely exhausted and needed some time to rest, or I was too worn out to attend. So I decided to stay home. Repeat, I was absolutely exhausted. I was too worn out to attend. Good. Now, let's practice describing real-life daily situations naturally at the C1 level. Basic B2. My morning was busy. C1. My morning was incredibly busy. I had a long list of tasks and barely any time to slow down. Or it was a hectic morning with back-to-back responsibilities. Repeat incredibly busy, a hectic morning. Now B2, I had a good day. C1. I had a really good day. Everything flowed smoothly and I felt productive. Or it was a rewarding day. I managed to complete everything I had planned. Repeat, a really good day. A rewarding day. Amazing work. You're building real fluency. Welcome back. You're doing an excellent job staying engaged and practicing deeply. In this part, we're going to focus on rhythm, natural pacing, real-life conversational flow, complex grammar structures made simple, and storytelling with emotional depth, all of which are crucial if you want to move smoothly from B2 to C1. Let's begin with speech rhythm, something native speakers use naturally, but learners often miss. At the B2 level, speech sometimes becomes choppy, like I went to the store and I bought something. At the C1 level, your speech needs to connect smoothly. I went to the store to pick up a few things. I didn't expect much, but the day turned out better than I thought. I've been trying to finish this project for days. Repeat after me. I went to the store to pick up a few things. The day turned out better than I thought. I've been trying to finish this project for days. Great. Now let's practice chunking grouping words in natural units. This helps you sound fluent, not mechanical. B2 often sounds like I don't know if I can finish this today. C1 groups the sentence naturally. I don't know if I can finish this today. I'm not sure whether I'll get it done in time. I might be able to finish it, but it depends on the workload. Repeat, I don't know if I can finish this today. I'm not sure whether I'll get it done. It depends on the workload. Perfect. Now, let's move to real conversational flow phrases native speakers use constantly to sound smooth and relatable. Practice these natural C1 expressions. You know, I didn't expect that at all. To be fair, the situation was a bit complicated. At the end of the day, we all want the same thing. If you think about it, it actually makes sense. Honestly, I didn't see that coming. Repeat after me. You know, I didn't expect that at all. To be fair, at the end of the day, if you think about it, honestly, I didn't see that coming. Nice. Now, let's practice interactive conversation. Something essential for sounding natural in English. Imagine you're talking to a colleague or a friend. Here is a B2 version. I didn't finish the task. I was busy. C1 version. I wasn't able to finish the task today. I had a lot going on. But I can wrap it up tomorrow. Or, I didn't manage to get to it because something urgent came up. Repeat, I wasn't able to finish it today. I had a lot going on. Something urgent came up. These phrases appear everywhere in real English. Now, let's look at complex grammar made simple, how C1 speakers naturally use structures that sound advanced but feel easy once you get used to them. One of the key differences between B2 and C1 is how you talk about time. Let's practice with present perfect continuous, which is extremely common among native speakers. Basic B2, I study English. C1, I've been studying English for a while now. I've been trying to improve my speaking. I've been focusing a lot on pronunciation lately. Repeat, I've been studying English for a while now. I've been trying to improve my speaking. I've been focusing on pronunciation. Next, let's practice reported speech, another hallmark of C1 fluency. B2, she said, I'm tired. C1, she mentioned that she was tired. Or, she told me she'd had a long day and was exhausted. Repeat. She mentioned that she was tired. She told me she'd had a long day. Now, let's practice advanced conjunctions, which make your sentences sound smooth and well-connected. Instead of saying I was tired, but I worked, you can say, even though I was tired, I managed to finish my work, or despite feeling tired, I kept going until everything was done. Repeat, even though I was tired, despite feeling tired. Good. Now let's work on storytelling with emotional depth, a core C1 skill. B2 storytelling is usually factual. I met my friend, we talked, then I went home. C1 storytelling adds background, emotion, flow, context. Here's an upgraded version. Yesterday evening, I met up with a friend I hadn't seen in months. We ended up talking for nearly an hour, catching up on everything that had happened recently. By the time I headed home, I felt surprisingly refreshed and grateful for the conversation. Repeat after me. I met up with a friend I hadn't seen in months. We ended up talking for nearly an hour. I felt surprisingly refreshed and grateful. Let's build another example. Basic, I had a bad day. C1. I had a rough day today. Everything seemed to go wrong. And by the end of it, I felt completely drained. Another version. It was one of these days where nothing went as planned, and I just couldn't catch a break. Repeat. I had a rough day. Nothing went as planned. You're doing great. Now let's practice upgrading simple daily expressions into natural C1 language. B2, I'm very tired. C1, I'm absolutely exhausted. I'm worn out. I'm running out of energy. Repeat, I'm absolutely exhausted. I'm worn out. Another one. B2, I'm busy. C1, I've got a lot on my plate right now. I'm juggling quite a few things at the moment. I'm swamped with work today. Repeat, a lot on my plate. I'm juggling a few things. I'm swamped. Perfect. Now let's shift to a more advanced skill, C1 level reasons and explanations. B2, I didn't go because it was late. C1, I decided not to go since it was getting quite late and I didn't want to rush. Or I chose not to go as the timing wasn't ideal. Repeat, I decided not to go. The timing wasn't ideal. Next, let's practice expressing expectations and surprises, something native speakers do naturally. Practice these. I wasn't expecting that. It turned out better than I thought. It caught me off guard. Surprisingly, it worked out really well. I didn't see that coming. Repeat. It turned out better than I thought. It caught me off guard. Surprisingly, it worked out well. Now, let's combine everything in a short C1 level monologue. Listen to this. To be honest, today turned out much better than I expected. I had a lot on my plate this morning, but surprisingly, things went smoothly. I managed to get most of my work done, and I even had time to catch up with a friend in the afternoon. All in all, it was a productive and refreshing day. Now repeat parts of it today. Turned out much better than I expected. I had a lot on my plate. Things went smoothly. All in all, it was a productive and refreshing day. Fantastic. Welcome back. You're progressing extremely well. In this section, we're going to push deeper into advanced connectors, natural conversational reactions, abstract thinking, and C1 level reasoning. These are the exact skills that allow a learner to move from strong B2 to confident C1. Let's begin with high-level connectors, which help you sound logical, structured, and professional. At the B2 level, we often hear because, but, so, also. But at C1, you need a wider variety of linking expressions that add sophistication and clarity. Here are some essential C1 connectors. In light of that, with regard to, in contrast to, having said that. In addition to this, on top of that, nevertheless, as a consequence. Let's practice them in sentences. Repeat after me. In light of that, we may need to reconsider our plan. With regard to your question, I think we should check the data first, in contrast to last year. Our progress has been much faster. Having said that, there are still challenges we need to address. In addition to this, we should explore alternative options. On top of that, we're running out of time. Nevertheless, we managed to complete the task. As a consequence, the deadline had to be extended. Excellent. Now, let's practice applying them in a real situation. Imagine you're discussing work or a project. B2 version. We had some problems, but we finished. C1 versions. We ran into several issues along the way. Nevertheless, we managed to complete the project on time. Or, we faced a few unexpected challenges. In light of that, it's impressive that we still met the deadline. Repeat nevertheless. We managed to complete the project. In light of that, it's impressive we still met the deadline. Now let's move to real conversational reactions phrases native speakers use in daily life that help your speech sound natural, not robotic. Practice these common reactions. That makes sense. Fair enough. I get what you mean. I see where you're coming from. Yeah, I can relate to that. That's a good point. Actually, that's not what I expected. Oh, I didn't realize that. Repeat after me. That makes sense. I get what you mean. I can relate to that. That's a good point. Oh, I didn't realize that. These phrases are extremely common in real English conversations. Now let's work on expressing abstract ideas, something that truly separates C1 speakers from B2 speakers. At the B2 level, learners often stay with concrete ideas. I like reading. Learning English is important. I want to be successful. At C1, you need to express broader, deeper ideas. Let's upgrade them. Basic, I like reading. C1 reading allows me to explore different perspectives and understand the world in a deeper way. Basic learning English is important. C1 learning English provides access to opportunities and cultures that would otherwise be out of reach. Basic, I want to be successful. C1, for me, success means having the freedom to choose the life I want and the ability to grow continuously. Repeat after me. Explore different perspectives, access to opportunities, freedom to choose the life I want, ability to grow continuously. Well done. Now, let's practice explaining reasons at a higher level. Another essential C1 skill. B2. I didn't go to the event because I was tired. C1. I didn't attend the event because I was completely drained after a long day, and I knew I wouldn't enjoy it fully. Another, I decided to skip the event since I needed some time to rest and recharge. Repeat. I was completely drained after a long day. I needed some time to rest and recharge. Good. Now, let's practice something native speakers use all the time: balanced opinions. This shows you can see both sides of a situation, a clear C1 skill. B2, I think working from home is good. C1, in my view, working from home offers greater flexibility. However, It can also make it harder to separate work from personal life. Another version. Working from home has clear benefits, such as saving time on commuting. Having said that, it can sometimes feel isolating. Repeat offers greater flexibility, makes it harder to separate work, and personal life has clear benefits. Having said that. Now let's practice adding nuance, a crucial part of advanced speaking. Instead of saying, "It's difficult," try, "It's somewhat challenging. It's fairly demanding. It's more complicated than I expected. It requires a bit more effort than I thought." Repeat, "Somewhat challenging, fairly demanding, more complicated than I expected." Excellent. Now let's build a context-rich explanation, the kind you hear in C1 speeches. Listen carefully. To be honest, adapting to a new environment takes time. At first, everything feels unfamiliar, and you might even feel a bit overwhelmed. However, gradually, things start to fall into place. You learn the routines, you get to know the people, and eventually, you begin to feel comfortable. Repeat the key parts. Adapting to a new environment takes time. Everything feels unfamiliar. Eventually, you begin to feel comfortable. Now let's practice expressing assumptions and possibilities, another C1 skill. B2. Maybe he forgot. C1. He might have forgotten to check his messages. It's possible that he overlooked the reminder. He could simply be running behind schedule today. Repeat, "He might have forgotten." It's possible he overlooked the reminder. He could be running behind schedule. Great. Now let's build a mini monologue using these new skills. Listen. As it turns out, the meeting went much better than I expected. At first, I thought we might run into some disagreements, but everyone was surprisingly cooperative. In addition to that, we managed to cover all the key points within the first hour. All things considered, it was a productive and positive discussion. Now repeat key chunks much better than I expected. Surprisingly cooperative, covered all the key points. All things considered. Perfect. Welcome back. Now that we've built a solid foundation of advanced connectors, natural reactions, and deeper reasoning, we're ready to step into some of the most powerful tools of C1 English metaphors: expressive language, storytelling with tension, high-level phrasal verbs, and natural emphasis. These elements make your English richer, more memorable, and more emotionally engaging. Let's begin with metaphors, a key feature of natural. Advanced communication. Metaphors help you express ideas more vividly. They're extremely common in everyday English, not just in literature. Here are some widely used metaphors. Time is flying. Time feels fast. My mind went blank. I couldn't think he has a heart of gold. He is very kind. Her patience is wearing thin. She is losing patience. That idea is a double-edged sword. It has good and bad sides. Repeat after me. Time is flying. My mind went blank. He has a heart of gold. Her patience is wearing thin. A double-edged sword. Now let's apply metaphors in real sentences. B2, I was tired. C1, by the end of the day, My energy had completely drained away. I felt like my battery was running on 1%. Repeat. My energy had completely drained away. My battery was running on 1%. Excellent. Now let's move into expressive. Emotional storytelling, something that truly separates B2 from C1. At B2, you might say I had a stressful day. At C1, you build tension, emotion, and imagery. To be honest, today felt like one challenge after another. Everything piled up so quickly that I barely had a moment to breathe. By lunchtime, I could feel the stress weighing on my shoulders. Repeat one challenge after another. I barely had a moment to breathe, the stress weighing on my shoulders. These expressions make your storytelling sound real, relatable, and engaging. Let's try another example. B2, I was surprised. C1, when I heard the news, it completely caught me off guard. I didn't know what to say for a moment. Repeat. It completely caught me off guard. I didn't know what to say. Now let's practice building tension in storytelling, a key C1 skill. Listen to this short story. Yesterday, I was rushing to make it to an appointment. Everything was going smoothly until I realized I had forgotten an important document at home. My heart sank. I knew I had only a few minutes to decide whether to go back or keep going. In that moment, time felt painfully slow. Repeat the highlights. My heart sank. Time felt painfully slow. I had only a few minutes to decide. These emotional expressions make your speaking more vivid and advanced. Now let's move on to high-level phrasal verbs, the kind native speakers use constantly and which are essential at C1. Here are some commonly used C1 phrasal verbs. Carry on with nios, continue, bring up, nios, mention, point out, highlight, work something out, uniswais, solve, run into someone, risos, meet unexpectedly, look back on, risos, reflect on, come up with, risos, create, think of, get around to, resiasas, finally do something you delayed. Let's practice them in sentences. I'll carry on with the project while you check the data. She brought up an interesting point during the meeting. I just wanted to point out a small error. We finally worked out a solution. I ran into an old colleague yesterday. When I look back on last year, I realize how much I've learned. He came up with a brilliant idea. I still haven't gotten around to replying to that email. Repeat each one slowly and naturally. Carry on with the project. Brought up an interesting point. Point out a small error. Worked out a solution. Ran into an old colleague. Look back on last year, came up with a brilliant idea. Get around to replying. Excellent work. Now let's talk about emphasis, something that advanced speakers use to express strong feelings, highlight important details, and add emotional color. At B2, you might say it's very important. At C1, you can use powerful intensifiers. It's absolutely essential. It's incredibly important. It's extremely valuable. It's vitally important. Repeat, absolutely essential, incredibly important, extremely valuable, vitally important. Good. Now for soft emphasis, which is equally important. a bit challenging, slightly confusing, somewhat unexpected, fairly common. Repeat, a bit challenging, slightly confusing, somewhat unexpected, fairly common. Let's combine advanced emphasis with real-life examples. B2. The instructions are confusing. C1. The instructions are slightly confusing, but I'm sure we can figure them out. Or, the instructions are incredibly unclear. I'm not surprised people are having trouble. Repeat, slightly confusing, incredibly unclear. Now, let's strengthen your ability to express subtle emotional reactions, something native speakers do without thinking. Practice these natural emotional expressions. Honestly, I wasn't sure how to react. I felt a wave of relief when it was over. That moment really stayed with me. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I was genuinely moved by what happened. Repeat, a wave of relief. That moment stayed with me. I couldn't shake the feeling. Perfect. Now let's put everything together in a short C1 level narrative. Listen first. Last night, I was going through some old photos, and suddenly, a whole wave of memories washed over me. It's strange how a single picture can take you back instantly. As I looked back on those moments, I realized how much has changed and how quickly time flies. Now repeat key parts. A whole wave of memories washed over me. It can take you back instantly. How quickly time flies. Finally, let's practice C1 level reflection, which helps you express deeper thoughts. To be honest, I've been thinking a lot about how quickly life changes. Sometimes it feels overwhelming, but other times, it reminds me to appreciate every moment. Repeat. I've been thinking a lot about how quickly life changes. It reminds me to appreciate every moment. Beautiful work. Now, let's continue building your C1 fluency by working with contrast, concession, advanced comparisons, emotional storytelling, and polished spoken expressions that make your English sound natural, balanced, and confident. These are skills native speakers use constantly without even realizing it. And once you master them, your speaking will feel more expressive, flexible, and precise. Let's begin with C1 level contrast and concession. Essential tools for giving balanced and nuanced opinions. Here are natural expressions you will hear everywhere. Although, even though, while, whereas, despite the fact that, nevertheless, even so, at the same time. Repeat these slowly, although, even though, whereas, nevertheless, even so. Now let's put them into real sentences. Although I was exhausted, I still wanted to finish the task. Even though the meeting ran long, it was surprisingly productive. While the idea sounds simple, the execution is far more complex. Whereas my colleagues prefer working in silence, I enjoy a bit of background noise. Despite the fact that I studied for hours, I still felt nervous about the exam. Nevertheless, we managed to solve the problem. Even so, I think we should review everything one more time. At the same time, I understand why some people disagree. Repeat key parts. The execution is far more complex. Despite the fact that, nevertheless, even so. Excellent. Now, let's move on to advanced comparisons, an important marker of C1 speech, instead of basic better, worse, or the same. C1 speakers use more precise and expressive language. Practice these. Far more effective than, nowhere near as simple as, slightly more challenging than, considerably better than, not nearly as difficult as, every bit as important as, significantly different from. Repeat, far more effective than, nowhere near as simple as, every bit as important as. Now let's use them in natural sentences. This approach is far more effective than the one we tried before. The task was nowhere near as simple as it looked. This topic is slightly more challenging than the last one. The new system is considerably better than the previous version. The exam was not nearly as difficult as I expected. Good communication is every bit as important as technical skill. Her reaction was significantly different from what I imagined. Repeat, far more effective than the one we tried before. Not nearly as difficult as I expected, every bit as important as technical skill. Perfect. Now let's build your ability to tell emotional stories naturally, an essential C1 skill that shows fluency, clarity, and expressiveness. Listen to this example. Last week, I went out for a walk to clear my mind. It has been a busy day, and I just needed some fresh air. As I was walking, I suddenly ran into an old friend I hadn't seen for years. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. Then, as we started catching up, I felt this warm sense of familiarity. It was as if no time had passed at all. Repeat the key emotional expressions. I went out for a walk to clear my mind. I just needed some fresh air. I suddenly ran into an old friend. A warm sense of familiarity. Now let's practice another short emotional moment. To be honest, I was a little overwhelmed at first. There was so much happening at the same time that I didn't know where to focus. But slowly, things started to make sense. One step at a time. Everything fell into place. Repeat. I was a little overwhelmed at first. Things started to make sense. Everything fell into place. Great. Now let's level up your fluency with polished spoken expressions, phrases that make your speech sound smoother, clearer, and more natural. Practice these. Here's the thing. To be completely honest, if I'm being realistic, as far as I can tell, from what I've noticed, the way I see it, at the end of the day, to put it simply, repeat. Here's the thing, as far as I can tell, the way I see it, at the end of the day. Now let's use them in context. Here's the thing, learning English takes time, but the progress is absolutely worth it. To be completely honest, I didn't expect the results to improve so quickly. As far as I can tell, consistency matters more than anything else. The way I see it, you're already on the right track. At the end of the day, what matters most is that you keep going. Repeat consistency matters more than anything else. You're already on the right track. At the end of the day, what matters most is that you keep going. Now let's combine storytelling, comparison, and polished expressions into one seamless C1 level mini monologue. Yesterday was far more exhausting than I had expected. I thought I would finish everything by noon, but the tasks were nowhere near as simple as they looked. At one point, I felt slightly overwhelmed, but I kept going. As the day went on, things slowly started to fall into place. At the end of the day, even though it took longer than planned, I was genuinely proud of the progress. Repeat key parts far more exhausting than I expected, nowhere near as simple as they looked. Things slowly started to fall into place. I was genuinely proud of the progress. You're doing incredibly well. These skills, concession, comparison, emotional storytelling, and polished expressions are exactly what move a learner from B2 into clear, confident C1 communication. In this section, we are going to shift into skills that truly define C1 speakers building arguments, expressing persuasive ideas, adjusting tone depending on the situation, and explaining your reasoning with clarity and confidence. These are the skills that allow you to participate in meetings, presentations, interviews, and deeper conversations with ease. Let's begin with argument building, the ability to structure your ideas logically and convincingly. C1 speakers often use expressions such as, "The main point I want to highlight is that one reason this matters is because," "A key factor to consider is," "There is strong evidence that suggests," "What makes this especially important is," to put it another way. Repeat. "The main point I want to highlight is that a key factor to consider is, what makes this especially important is." Now let's apply these to real examples. The main point I want to highlight is that daily practice is far more effective than long sessions done once a week. One reason this matters is because consistency helps you build long-term memory. What makes this especially important is that regular exposure keeps your brain connected to the language. Repeat the key chunks. Daily practice is far more effective. Consistency helps you build long-term memory. Regular exposure keeps your brain connected to the language. Excellent! Now let's move to persuasive language, which helps you influence, convince, or motivate people. Here are some natural C1 expressions. I firmly believe that. There is no doubt that. It's widely accepted that. I would argue that. It's reasonable to assume that. From my perspective. Repeat slowly. I firmly believe that. I would argue that. It's reasonable to assume that. Now let's use them in natural contexts. I firmly believe that anyone can reach a higher level of English with the right guidance and consistent effort. I would argue that listening and speaking practice are just as important as grammar. It's reasonable to assume that your progress will speed up once you build strong daily habits. Repeat the right guidance and consistent effort. Listening and speaking are just as important. Your progress will speed up. Great. Now let's work on tone shifting. A crucial skill at C1. Tone shifting means adjusting your language style depending on who you're speaking to. Here are 3 levels: informal, neutral, and formal. Imagine you're asking someone for help. Informal. Hey, can you help me out with this neutral? Could you help me with this, please? Formal. Would you be able to assist me with this matter? Repeat each one naturally. Can you help me out with this? Could you help me with this? Please, would you be able to assist me with this matter? Now imagine you are declining something politely. Informal: sorry, I can't make it tonight. Neutral. I'm afraid I won't be able to make it tonight. Formal. Unfortunately, I must inform you that I'm unable to attend. Repeat. I'm afraid I won't be able to make it. I'm unable to attend. Now let's practice tone shifting in a complete idea. Informal: I don't get what you mean. Neutral: I'm not sure I understand what you mean. Formal: I'm not entirely certain I grasp your point. Repeat. I'm not sure I understand. I'm not entirely certain I grasp your point. Perfect. Now let's move into professional expressions, which are essential for workplace communication. Practice these common phrases. Let me clarify that, to the best of my knowledge, as far as I'm aware, it would be helpful if we should take into consideration that. Could you elaborate on that point? I appreciate your input. Repeat: to the best of my knowledge. We should take into consideration that. Could you elaborate on that point? Now let's place them in natural sentences. To the best of my knowledge, the report is accurate. It would be helpful if we could review the data once more. We should take into consideration that the deadline is approaching. I appreciate your input. It gave us a new perspective. Could you elaborate on that point so we can fully understand your idea? Repeat: review the data. Once more, the deadline is approaching a new perspective. Great. Now let's strengthen your ability to explain reasoning. Something advanced English speakers do naturally. Here are some high-level phrases. The reason for this is that. This is mainly because. What this means is that. This ultimately leads to. As a result. In many cases. Repeat. The reason for this is that. What this means is that. As a result. Now let's apply them. The reason for this is that your brain needs repeated exposure to build strong memory pathways. What this means is that listening daily becomes a crucial habit. This ultimately leads to faster comprehension and more natural speaking. As a result, your confidence grows and your fluency becomes more automatic. Repeat: crucial habit, natural speaking. Your confidence grows. Now let's practice complex reasoning, something C1 speakers do in presentations or discussions. Listen. Language learning is not only about memorizing vocabulary, it's also about understanding how words interact in real contexts. This is mainly because communication requires flexibility and quick thinking. When you train your brain to recognize patterns, you respond more naturally, even under pressure. Repeat key parts. How words interact in real contexts. Communication requires flexibility. Respond more naturally, even under pressure. Excellent! Now let's combine everything argument building. persuasion, tone shifting, and reasoning into one smooth C1 level monologue. The main point I want to highlight is that fluency develops through consistent exposure. I firmly believe that even small daily habits can transform your confidence. What this means is that you don't need to study for hours. Instead, focus on regular listening and speaking. As far as I can tell, this approach is far more realistic and sustainable. At the end of the day, if you stay consistent, your progress becomes inevitable. Repeat fluency develops through consistent exposure. Small daily habits can transform your confidence, far more realistic and sustainable. Your progress becomes inevitable. Beautiful work. In this section, we will focus on 4 powerful C1 skills: advanced paraphrasing, natural idiomatic expressions, narrative flow, and real-life decision-making language. These skills will help your speaking sound flexible, confident, and natural, exactly like a well-trained C1 communicator. Let's begin with advanced paraphrasing, a crucial ability at C1. Paraphrasing means expressing the same idea in a different way without changing the meaning. It shows flexibility, range, and clarity. Here are natural paraphrasing expressions native speakers use all the time. In other words, to put it differently, what I'm trying to say is, another way to look at it is, to phrase it more simply. What this basically means is, repeat slowly. In other words, to put it differently. Another way to look at it is, now let's apply these in full sentences. The workload increased this month. In other words, we all need to manage our time more carefully. This topic is quite complex. To put it differently, you need a strong foundation to fully understand it. We need a new strategy. Another way to look at it is we must approach the problem from a fresh angle. I don't think he meant to upset you. What I'm trying to say is his intention was not negative. It might sound confusing at first. To phrase it more simply, it just means you need to practice consistently. Repeat key parts, approach the problem from a fresh angle. His intention was not negative. Practice consistently. Now let's move into idiomatic expressions, which are essential for sounding more natural and closer to native level communication. These idioms are widely used in everyday English and add life and color to your speech. Practice these. Take your time. Keep an open mind. Make up your mind. Hit the nail on the head. Go the extra mile. Get the hang of it. Stay on track. Lose track of time. That rings a bell out of the blue. Repeat, keep an open mind. Go the extra mile. Get the hang of it. Lose track of time. Now let's put them into natural sentences. If you're learning something new, take your time and don't rush. To understand a new idea, it helps to keep an open mind. When the deadline gets closer, you'll need to make up your mind. Your explanation hit the nail on the head. She always goes the extra mile when preparing her work. Don't worry, you'll get the hang of it soon. If you stay on track, you'll reach your goals faster. I was so focused that I completely lost track of time. That name rings a bell, but I can't remember where I heard it. He called me out of the blue after 5 years. Repeat the natural chunks, hit the nail on the head, go the extra mile, stay on track out of the blue. Now, let's develop your narrative flow, which is the ability to tell a story smoothly, naturally, and with emotional depth, an important part of C1 speaking. Listen carefully to this short story. Earlier today, I was on my way to work when something unexpected happened. As I stepped onto the bus, I noticed someone who looked familiar. At first, I wasn't sure, but after a moment, it all clicked. It was a friend I hadn't seen in years. We started talking, and suddenly, the whole morning felt brighter. It was a simple moment, but it reminded me how small the world can feel sometimes. Repeat the emotional expressions. Something unexpected happened after a moment. It all clicked. The whole morning felt brighter. How small the world can feel. Now let's practice another narrative moment. This time focusing on internal thoughts. Last night, I stayed up later than usual, trying to finish a project. At one point, I felt stuck. No matter what I tried, the ideas just weren't coming together. But then, after taking a short break, everything started to flow again. It was a reminder that sometimes stepping back is the best way to move forward. Repeat, I felt stuck. The ideas just weren't coming together. Everything started to flow again. Stepping back is the best way to move forward. Now let's move to decision-making language. Something C1 speakers do naturally in daily life, especially in professional or personal discussions. Here are some useful expressions. I'm leaning toward, I'm considering the option of, I haven't decided yet, but one thing I need to think about is, I'm weighing the pros and cons. It might be a good idea to... It's worth taking into account that, at this point, I'm inclined to... Repeat, I'm leaning toward, I'm weighing the pros and cons. It's worth taking into account that... Now let's apply them. I'm leaning toward taking the new job, but I still need more information. I'm considering the option of studying abroad next year. I haven't decided yet, but I'm thinking about changing my schedule. One thing I need to think about is how much time it will require. I'm weighing the pros and cons before making a decision. It might be a good idea to ask for advice. It's worth taking into account that the situation may change. At this point, I'm inclined to choose the second option. Repeat key phrases. I haven't decided yet, but I'm thinking about changing my schedule. I'm weighing the pros and cons. I'm inclined to choose the second option. Excellent! Now, let's combine everything idioms, paraphrasing, narrative flow, and decision-making into a smooth C1 style monologue. Listen. To be honest, I've been thinking a lot about my goals lately. I'm weighing the pros and cons of different options, and I still haven't made up my mind. Another way to look at it is that each choice leads to a different kind of growth. Yesterday, out of the blue, a friend gave me some advice that really hit the nail on the head. He said, "Take your time and keep an open mind." And he's right. At this point, I'm inclined to stay on track with what feels meaningful. In other words, I just need to trust the process. Repeat the key lines. Each choice leads to a different kind of growth out of the blue. Take your time and keep an open mind. I'm inclined to stay on track. Trust the process. You're doing incredibly well. These skills will lift your English to a polished, natural, and flexible C1 level. In this section, we will focus on 4 major C1 skills that make your speaking sound sophisticated, thoughtful, and emotionally intelligent, expressing subtle emotions, using rhetorical questions naturally, combining complex clauses, and speaking reflectively with depth. These skills allow you to sound clear, confident, and truly advanced in real conversations. Let's begin with expressing subtle emotions. At the B2 level, learners usually express emotions in a very direct way. I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm angry. But C1 speakers add layers of meaning. They show intensity, nuance, and emotional depth. Practice these natural, subtle, emotional expressions. I was slightly disappointed. I felt genuinely relieved. I was pleasantly surprised. I felt a bit uneasy. I was deeply moved. I was somewhat frustrated. I felt strangely calm. I was quietly confident. Repeat. I was slightly disappointed. I felt genuinely relieved. I was pleasantly surprised. I was deeply moved. Now let's use these in real-life sentences. I was slightly disappointed with the results, but I understand why things turned out that way. When I finally got the message, I felt genuinely relieved. Her reaction was so kind that I was pleasantly surprised. The atmosphere felt tense, and I was a bit uneasy at first. The story was so touching that I was deeply moved. Repeat key chunks. Genuinely relieved, pleasantly surprised, a bit uneasy, deeply moved. Excellent. Now let's explore rhetorical questions, a powerful tool that C1 speakers use to engage listeners, emphasize ideas, and express emotion without directly asking for an answer. Here are some common rhetorical questions. Have you ever wondered why some people improve so quickly? Isn't it amazing how small habits lead to big results? Who wouldn't want to sound more confident in English? Doesn't it feel great when everything finally clicks? Isn't it surprising how fast time flies? Repeat. Isn't it amazing how small habits lead to big results? Who wouldn't want to sound more confident in English? Doesn't it feel great when everything finally clicks? Now let's use rhetorical questions to build a natural flow. Have you ever had a moment when you suddenly understood something that seemed impossible before? Doesn't that feeling stay with you for a long time? Repeat. Doesn't that feeling stay with you for a long time? Great! Now let's level up your grammar flexibility with complex clause combinations. A major sign of C1 fluency. These structures allow you to combine ideas smoothly, express cause and effect, show contrast, and add extra information all in one sentence. Practice these connector patterns. Although, even if, as long as, provided that, once, now that, given that, whenever, unless. Repeat as long as, provided that, given that. Now let's put them into natural C1 level sentences. As long as you keep practicing regularly, your fluency will continue to improve, provided that we stay focused. We can finish this earlier than expected. Even if things don't go perfectly, you can still learn a lot from the experience. Once you understand the pattern, everything becomes much easier. Now that I've seen the results, I feel much more confident. Given that you've been consistent for months, your progress is impressive. Repeat. As long as you keep practicing regularly, even if things don't go perfectly, once you understand the pattern, perfect. Now let's practice combining ideas into more sophisticated structures. Although I had a lot to do, I decided to take a break, which turned out to be exactly what I needed. Since we don't have much time, we should focus on the most important tasks so that we can work efficiently. Whenever I feel stuck, I remind myself that progress often takes longer than expected. Repeat, which turned out to be exactly what I needed so that we can work efficiently. Progress often takes longer than expected. Excellent! Now, let's move into deep reflective speaking, a style often used by C1 speakers when sharing insights, personal thoughts, or meaningful observations. Reflective speaking helps you express complexity in a simple, natural way. Listen to this reflective passage. To be honest, I've realized that growth doesn't always happen in obvious ways. Sometimes it's slow and subtle, almost invisible at first, but when you look back, you suddenly notice how far you've come. And in those moments, you understand that every small effort mattered. Repeat key phrases. Growth doesn't always happen in obvious ways. Slow and subtle, you suddenly notice how far you've come. Every small effort mattered. Now, here's another reflective moment. I've been thinking about how we handle challenges. Most of the time, we only see the difficulty, not the opportunity behind it. But once the moment passes, we often realize that the challenge helped us grow stronger, more patient, and more confident. Repeat, we only see the difficulty, the opportunity behind it. The challenge helped us grow stronger. Let's practice connecting your feelings with your thoughts, a core C1 skill. I've come to understand that learning a language is not just about grammar. It's about discovering new ways to express yourself. It's about building confidence, embracing mistakes, and recognizing progress, even when it feels small. Repeat discovering new ways to express yourself, embracing mistakes, recognizing progress. Now let's combine subtle emotion, rhetorical questions, complex clauses, and reflective speaking into one C1 level paragraph. Sometimes I wonder why we expect progress to happen instantly. Isn't it more realistic to think of learning as a long journey rather than a quick result? Although we may not notice improvement every day, each moment of practice shapes us in ways we don't realize. And once we look back, we often feel pleasantly surprised by how much we've grown, even if the progress felt slow. Repeat a long journey rather than a quick result. Each moment of practice shapes us pleasantly surprised by how much we've grown. You're doing exceptionally well. These reflective and expressive skills will make your English sound deeper, clearer, and far more advanced. In this section, we will continue developing your C1 speaking abilities through 4 powerful skill sets: advanced speculation and probability, nuanced agreement and disagreement, emphasis and inversion, and real-life persuasive communication. These skills help you express certainty, doubt, perspective, and influence exactly what confident C1 speakers do in real conversations. Let's start with advanced speculation and probability, which helps you talk about possibilities in a polished, natural way. Here are common C1 expressions. It's highly likely that, it seems reasonable to assume that, there's a strong possibility that, it could well be that, it's quite possible that, there's a chance that, it appears that, it's almost certain that. Repeat. It's highly likely that, it seems reasonable to assume that, it could well be that, it's quite possible that. Now let's use them in natural, realistic sentences. It's highly likely that you'll improve quickly if you keep practicing consistently. It seems reasonable to assume that he simply forgot to reply. There's a strong possibility that the meeting will be rescheduled. It could well be that she hasn't seen the message yet. It's quite possible that the delay is due to technical issues. It appears that the situation has improved. It's almost certain that your confidence will grow with experience. Repeat, a strong possibility, could well be quite possible, almost certain. Excellent. Now let's move into nuanced agreement and disagreement, which is crucial for polite, confident C1 conversations. You want to show respect while still expressing your opinion clearly. Practice these natural expressions. I see your point, but I agree to some extent. Although, that's a valid point. However, I understand what you're saying, though I'm not entirely convinced that you're right in a way, but I'm afraid I have a slightly different perspective. Repeat, I see your point, but I agree to some extent, although I'm not entirely convinced that. Now let's use them in full sentences. I see your point, but I believe there are other factors to consider. I agree to some extent, although I think the situation is more complicated than it appears. That's a valid point. However, we still need more information. I understand what you're saying, though I would approach it differently. I'm not entirely convinced that this method is the most effective. You're right in a way, but I think we should look at the bigger picture. I'm afraid I have a slightly different perspective on this. Repeat key expressions, other factors to consider more complicated than it appears. Look at the bigger picture, a slightly different perspective. Great. Now, let's develop your ability to use emphasis and inversion, a classic C1 structure that adds sophistication and clarity. These structures are especially common in speeches, storytelling, and formal communication. Practice these inversion starters. Never have I, rarely do we, seldom does it. Only then did I. Not until much later did I. Hardly had I. Under no circumstances should you. Repeat, never have I. Seldom does it. Only then did I. Now let's use them in real sentences. Never have I felt more motivated to keep learning. Rarely do we realize how much progress we're making until we stop and reflect. Seldom does it happen that everything goes exactly as planned. Only then did I understand the importance of staying consistent. Not until much later did I realize how helpful that experience was. Hardly had I arrived when the meeting started. Under no circumstances should you give up on your goals. Repeat, never have I felt more motivated. Rarely do we realize our progress. Only then did I understand the importance. Excellent progress. Now let's move into real-life persuasive communication, which is crucial for expressing opinions convincingly, motivating others, or presenting ideas clearly. Here are natural persuasive starters. There are several reasons why. The evidence suggests that. One thing worth noting is that what makes this so important is, for this reason, what we should keep in mind is that. That's exactly why. Repeat. There are several reasons why. What makes this so important is. That's exactly why. Now let's apply them. There are several reasons why daily listening practice can transform your fluency. The evidence suggests that consistent small habits lead to long-term improvement. One thing worth noting is that your mindset plays a key role in your progress. What makes this so important is that confidence grows from repetition. For this reason, it's crucial to build routines you can maintain. What we should keep in mind is that progress isn't always immediate. That's exactly why giving up too early is such a common mistake. Repeat long-term improvement. Your mindset plays a key role. Progress isn't always immediate. Now let's combine persuasive language, speculation, and nuanced disagreement in one natural paragraph. I understand your point, but I'm not entirely convinced that studying for long hours is the best approach. It's quite possible that shorter, more focused sessions are far more effective. One thing worth noting is that consistency matters more than intensity. What makes this especially important is that your brain retains information better when it's reviewed regularly. For this reason, I firmly believe that daily practice is the key to real progress. Repeat the key lines shorter. More focused sessions are far more effective. Consistency matters more than intensity. Your brain retains information better when reviewed regularly. Daily practice is the key to real progress. Now let's practice creating emotional emphasis with inversion and subtle language. Never have I seen someone improve so quickly once they committed to daily practice. Not until I slowed down did I truly understand how important clarity is. Seldom does progress happen overnight, but it always happens when you keep going. Repeat. Never have I seen someone improve so quickly. Not until I slowed down did I understand. Seldom does progress happen overnight. Finally, let's wrap up this section with a short, reflective, persuasive monologue, combining everything. To be honest, there's a strong possibility that we underestimate our own abilities. Rarely do we recognize how far we've come. And isn't it amazing how small habits can completely reshape your confidence? One thing worth noting is that improvement often happens quietly, beneath the surface. What we should keep in mind is that every step counts, even when it feels slow. That's exactly why consistency matters more than perfection. Repeat improvement often happens quietly, every step counts. Consistency matters more than perfection. You're doing outstanding work. Your C1 fluency is becoming richer, clearer, and more natural with every step. In this section, we will continue strengthening your C1 fluency with 4 essential skill sets: advanced storytelling with emotional depth, polished cause-effect structures, professional clarity in explanations, and natural spoken transitions that allow you to speak for longer without losing flow. These skills help you sound confident, structured, and genuinely fluent in real-life conversations. Let's begin with C1 level storytelling, where emotional detail, pacing, and reflective insight create a natural and engaging narrative. Listen carefully. Earlier this week, I had one of those days where everything seemed to move too fast. I woke up feeling slightly tired, but I pushed through anyway, on my way to work. The bus was unusually quiet, and for some reason, that calmness made me feel more aware of everything around me. When I finally arrived, I realized I had forgotten an important document at home. For a moment, my heart sank, but instead of panicking, I took a deep breath and tried to think clearly. Surprisingly, that small pause changed everything. It allowed me to stay calm and find a solution quickly. Later, as I looked back on the day, I couldn't help but feel grateful. Sometimes the most stressful moments teach us the most valuable lessons. Repeat key emotional expressions. My heart sank. I took a deep breath. That small pause changed everything. The most stressful moments teach us valuable lessons. Now let's try another narrative moment. This time focusing on internal change. A few days ago, I had a conversation that stayed with me. A friend told me something simple but powerful. He said, "Don't rush your progress." At first, I didn't think much of it, but later, as I went through my day, his words kept echoing in my mind. I realized that I had been expecting too much from myself too quickly. That moment made me slow down and appreciate small improvements. And honestly, that shift in mindset made a huge difference. Repeat the conversation stayed with me. His words kept echoing in my mind. I had been expecting too much from myself. That shift in mindset made a huge difference. Excellent. Now let's move into advanced cause-effect structures, which help your speech sound logical, precise, and C1 level professional. Practice these. Due to the fact that, as a consequence of, given that, as a result of this ultimately led to, consequently. This was mainly because, for this reason. Repeat due to the fact that, as a consequence of, given that, consequently. Now let's create polished sentences. Due to the fact that the schedule changed, we had to reorganize our plan. As a consequence of the delay, the meeting ended later than expected. Given that you've been consistent for months, your improvement is completely natural. As a result of this new habit, my confidence has grown steadily. This ultimately led to a much clearer understanding of the topic. Consequently, we were able to finish everything on time. This was mainly because we communicated effectively. For this reason, I always try to review my progress regularly. Repeat important chunks. Your improvement is completely natural. My confidence has grown steadily. We communicated effectively. I review my progress regularly. Great. Now let's strengthen professional clarity in explanations. Something C1 speakers excel at, especially in academic or workplace settings. Practice these clear and structured explanation starters. The main idea is that, to clarify, what this means is that, in simple terms. To give you an example, the reason behind this is, the key difference is that. Repeat to clarify. What this means is that. The key difference is that. Now let's build full explanations. The main idea is that regular exposure helps you internalize the language without overthinking. To clarify, you don't need to speak perfectly to communicate effectively. What this means is that small daily habits often matter more than long, intense sessions. In simple terms, consistency beats intensity. To give you an example, practicing for 10 minutes every day can be more effective than studying for 2 hours once a week. The reason behind this is that the brain remembers better with repetition. The key difference is that advanced learners focus on clarity and flow, not perfection. Repeat, regular exposure helps you internalize the language. Consistency beats intensity. The brain remembers better with repetition. Now, let's master natural spoken transitions, which allow you to speak longer without sounding repetitive or disconnected. C1 speakers use transitions to move smoothly between ideas, examples, and reflections. Practice these. First of all, on top of that, having said that, in addition to that, to be honest, at the same time, before I continue, by the way, now that I think about it, all in all, repeat. On top of that, having said that, at the same time, now that I think about it. Now let's create natural lines using these transitions. First of all, I want to highlight how much progress you've made. On top of that, your pronunciation has improved noticeably. Having said that, there's still room for more growth. In addition to that, your vocabulary range is expanding. To be honest, your consistency is what impresses me the most. At the same time, make sure you continue practicing naturally. Now that I think about it, your listening skills are improving quickly. All in all, you're moving in a very positive direction. Repeat. Your pronunciation has improved noticeably. Your vocabulary range is expanding. You're moving in a positive direction. Now, let's combine everything we've practiced: storytelling, cause-effect, clarity, and transitions into a smooth C1 level monologue. To be honest, this month has taught me a lot. First of all, I realized how powerful small daily habits can be. Due to the fact that I practiced regularly, my confidence grew much faster than I expected. On top of that, I started noticing patterns that used to confuse me. Having said that, there were still days when I felt stuck. But now that I think about it, those moments were actually useful. They pushed me to reflect and adjust my approach. All in all, this experience showed me that progress happens not only through success, but also through the challenges we overcome. Repeat the core ideas. Small daily habits are powerful. Those moments were actually useful. Progress happens through challenges we overcome. You're doing fantastic. Your speech is becoming more advanced, more expressive, and more natural with every section. In this final section, we'll bring everything together: C1 level summarizing, emotional closure, reflective insights, and a natural ending that feels warm, genuine, and motivating for your viewers. This is the moment where you reinforce everything they've learned and leave them with a sense of achievement and inspiration. Let's begin with C1 level summarizing, the ability to condense complex ideas clearly and naturally. Summaries at B2 often sound simple or repetitive, but C1 summaries are concise, organized, and meaningful. Practice these summary starters. In summary, to put it briefly, all things considered, to sum it up, at the end of the day, overall. Repeat, in summary, all things considered, to sum it up. Now let's build polished C1 summaries. In summary, moving from B2 to C1 is not about perfection. It's about expanding your vocabulary, sharpening your clarity, and learning to express ideas with more depth and confidence. All things considered. The most effective strategy is staying consistent with daily listening and speaking practice. To sum it up, your progress depends on small habits, not big moments. At the end of the day, what really matters is that you keep showing up. Repeat key phrases, express ideas with more depth and confidence. The most effective strategy is staying consistent. Your progress depends on small habits. Excellent. Now let's move into emotional closure, something C1 speakers use to connect deeply with listeners. Listen. You've spent this time practicing with focus and dedication, and that's something you should genuinely be proud of. Most people say they want to improve, but only a few actually commit to the process. The fact that you are here, learning step by step, shows your determination. Growth isn't always visible in the moment, but it builds quietly until one day you realize how far you've come. Repeat, you should genuinely be proud of. Growth isn't always visible in the moment. One day you realize how far you've come. Now let's add another reflective message. There will be days when learning feels slow, and days when everything suddenly clicks. Both moments matter. Both moments shape your fluency. What's important is that you stay open, stay patient, and trust yourself. Every sentence you repeat, every idea you understand, every mistake you correct, it all contributes to the speaker you are becoming. Repeat everything suddenly clicks. Both moments shape your fluency. Trust yourself. Now let's transition into final motivation. Something native level coaches often use to encourage learners. If there's one thing I hope you take away from this lesson, it's this: you don't need to rush. Real fluency comes from steady progress, not pressure. You're allowed to learn at your own pace. You're allowed to take breaks. You're allowed to grow slowly. What matters is that you never stop moving forward, even if the steps feel small. Repeat, real fluency comes from steady progress. Learn at your own pace. Never stop moving forward. Perfect. Now it's time to create a complete C1 level closing message, smooth. natural, and inspiring. Exactly the kind of ending that keeps viewers watching your videos until the final second and motivates them to subscribe. Here is the polished closing script. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. You've just completed a full training session designed to help you move from B2 to C1 with clarity, confidence, and natural expression. If you reached this point, it shows true dedication. Remember, every minute you invest in listening and speaking brings you closer to the fluency you want. So keep practicing, keep exploring, and keep believing in your progress. Your likes, comments, and shares help this channel grow and allow me to continue creating more lessons for learners around the world. I'd love to hear from you. So tell me in the comments, what part of today's practice helped you the most? Your voice matters here, and your journey inspires others too. Thank you again for being here. Until next time, keep learning, keep speaking, and keep moving forward. Repeat the essential closing lines: clarity, confidence, and natural expression. Every minute you invest brings you closer to fluency. Your voice matters. Here, keep moving forward.